Hi, I'm Josh and welcome back to another video on GCSE English language. Today, we'll be looking at the skill of analysis, a skill that's tested in nearly every reading question and is worth a good chunk of marks throughout both reading sections of Paper 1 and Paper 2. In this video, we'll look a bit deeper at the word analysis, breaking it down into some step-by-step instructions that if you follow in the exam will lead to some top marks even if you forget the rest of this video. Also, we'll take a look at the analysis questions themselves from both papers and look at the mark scheme that your examiner will be marking your paper with. We'll cover language and structure features and how you can use a framework to plan an answer. For those of you doing AQA, this video uses the Edexcel paper. However, it is exactly the same skill you'll need to learn for your exam too. It appears in questions 2, 3 and 4 in Paper 1 and the same in Paper 2. What you're graded on is exactly the same though. So the first thing we need to do is look at the word analysis. Analysis means the detailed examination and explanation of the features and structure of something and its resulting effect. If you can remember nothing else during your exam, remember that, because armed with that definition, you could, in the case of a brain vacation in that exam hall, rely on it to pull you through. When dealing with the written word, we can break down analysis into 3 distinct parts. Cause. What has the writer done? What have they tried to do? What was their intended effect or result for the characters/events in the story? Evidence. How they've done it. Why they've done it that way. Now this means what language and structure features did they use and why did they choose to use them? Now this part is very much about finding multiple linking and evidenceable parts. Lastly, effect. Does the author mean something that is perhaps hidden between the lines here? Do the characters act a certain way, but clearly feel or think another? How has the extract changed? And what mechanisms did they use to do so? How did they implement this change? Now this is a really powerful skill, and useful not just in English, but other subjects like history and science too. It's also a life skill, because analysing situations allow you to have a better grasp on how to handle them effectively. Okay, so next up in this video, let's take a look at the questions themselves and the mark scheme used to grade your answers. Mark schemes, as I've mentioned before, are rules, although examiners may refer to them as guidelines that they follow. However, there's nothing stopping you from learning this mark scheme and revising it. The questions rarely change as well, and it's a sure bet that if you understand what they are asking you to do each time, you'll not be subjected to any unpleasant surprises in your exam. Starting with Paper 1 Question 3, we find a 6-mark question that usually asks you to detail an emotion or thought coming from a main character in the extract, or how a scene, mood, or environment changes in some way. Now to do this, the question instructs you to find language and structure features, namely sentence structure features in the latter case, and these features will need to be evidenced with quotes from the text. Can't find a feature? Emotive language or descriptive language will be in there, as will a sentence type that you can talk about. Now it's worth mentioning at this point that there is a video on how to quote available on my channel, and you should go and watch it if you're serious about that passing grade. Now this question is also asking you to only look at a certain part of the extract, meaning that if you've got access to a highlighter, just draw a hollow box around these lines, but don't fill it in, because you'll want to be colouring in all the features you find. Now this question is worth 6 marks, so you're looking to spend maybe 6 to 10 minutes on it. In this time, you should aim to get 2 full paragraphs following an answer framework like PEDAL or PEAL for top marks. Make sure you make a solid point about the question, and a feature you'd like to talk about as well. Quote it and explain it further. Talk about how and why the author has used the feature in this way. A video on exam frameworks will be coming out shortly, if it isn't already out. Let's have a look at a question extract pairing and what information we can extract from it. So looking first at the question, we need to take it apart and figure out what it wants us to do. This question states that the writer has apparently used language and structure to tell us, the reader, about Mrs. Joe, meaning what her actions were like, and her personability, what she's like as a person. Moving over to the lines it wants us to look at and quote from, we need to find some proof that the question isn't just making things up for us. The first feature we find to prove this is an emotive noun-adjective pairing, leading up to a verb, by hand, which is also a slang expression that means violently. This together implies she sees herself as a stern, violent, tough person and is happy to be seen like that, rather than being appalled like a normal person would. This is further backed up by the next feature, alliteration, used to talk about her hard, heavy hand. Alliteration here is used for a fast, furious blast of words, perhaps to mimic her own violent swipes. Using the structural feature of repetition, we notice she's repeated the word hand. Think about what a hand implies. What can a hand do? Then relate that back to the question. While she sees herself as tough, others might see her as a person to be feared, a bully. Why would the author want this duality to be present? That's your job to think about and your job to analyse. Moving across to paper 2 question 3, we see something interesting. It's still asking you to analyse the use of language and structure, just like in the previous paper's analysis question, but this time it's focused not on a character's opinion, not on an environmental effect, but you, the reader, and how you are interested and or engaged with the extract as a complete piece. Now I say engages you, but it probably isn't you. The extracts are rarely chosen with learners in mind, and often cover riveting topics like museums, stamp collectors, metal detectorists, scientists studying the colour brown, or the mathematics of paint drying. It is therefore your job to figure out who would like this extract, put yourself in their headspace without instantly dying from a life that's far too exciting to live, and work out how does the author engage them. This question is worth 15 marks, but wants pretty much what question 3 paper 1 had, except you now need 3 paragraphs, ideally 2 language features and 1 analysing a sentence structure or other structural feature that's present in the text. Let's do the same to this question as we did to paper 1's question. Do a quick pairing analysis. Now, this question states, as it's stated since 2015, that it wants you to analyse how the author has used language and structure to interest and engage the reader. So let's take a quick look at this extract. Now, this one's about Peter Kay, and for the sake of brevity, it's just a snippet from a much larger piece. We start by putting ourselves in the shoes of a Peter Kay fan. The extract is written in a very conversational tone. Now, that's a structural feature which would create a sense of friendly, personal conversation with the reader. Remembering, of course, this is exactly what a fan would want from Peter. He goes on to speak about how going out in the car was a treat, using a short, 2-syllable set of words to create a mise-en-scène of childishness and youth, playing on a reader's nostalgia to deepen that empathic bond. Peter goes on to use lots of imagery for the characters he meets, pencil moustache, anemic looking, and the alliteration death's door to put a humorous spin on what's actually quite a dark situation. Peter has perhaps done this to spare his audience from feeling that pain, slamming the metaphorical brakes on this train to Depression Station. In other questions, like the evaluation and comparison questions across both papers, analysis is a stepping stone that leads you towards your answer. So don't discard this skill for those questions because you will need them. Anyway, that's us towards the end of this video. We've looked at both papers, how analysis works, what analysis is, and how to find a few bits of evidence. If you need to learn some more about these language and structure features, go and check out my video on Massive, which will teach you a few, but there are plenty of resources out there that will teach you more of them and how they're used. As usual, if you've got any questions, comments, or ideas, let me know down in the comment section below. Keep revising and stay safe.